So we have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'd like to say good morning. I'm Adele Imrie, Chair of the TCHC Board's Building, Investment, Finance, and Audit Committee. And I'd like to welcome everyone here today to the public session of the committee meeting. In light of the need for social distancing and to limit the spread of COVID-19, we continue to hold our meetings virtually. I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement that the land each of us is on as we hold this virtual meeting is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, the Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I would like to report that there were no decisions made in the in-camera session that I need to bring forward to this public session. In the public session today, we will be hearing a presentation from the City of Toronto's Director of Citywide Real Estate Program and the Senior Vice President of Create TO on the transition of the TCHC's development function to the city. There will also be two contractor awards brought forward to the committee for approval, one for the garage restoration of the Trimby Court and one for a design services funding agreement for the St. Jamestown Public Realm and Open Space Plan. Finally, we will have an internal audit department annual report for 2020, and we will be hearing from our Director of Internal Audit. The COVID-19 update. It's been a long year. It's almost 1 year since Toronto Community Housing activated its Emergency Operations Center in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our frontline staff continue to deliver essential services and connect tenants to supports, particularly in buildings and communities that have been very hard hit by COVID-19 or are still at elevated risk. In particular, I wanted to recognize the contributions of staff who work in our buildings. I'm proud of how our employees have stepped up to support tenants who are self-isolating and help agencies deliver food and other essentials to seniors and vulnerable tenants. And I'm very pleased that their hard work is being recognized and highlighted in the press lately. I want to thank everyone at the company for setting a good example by following public health advice at work and at home. In doing so, you are protecting your coworkers, your families, our tenants, and those in our cities who are most vulnerable to the effects of COVID-19. And your efforts are truly appreciated by all of us. So that concludes my opening remarks. There are a few special procedures that I'd like to highlight that we continue to follow during the virtual meetings. Despite the pandemic, we do encourage deputations. Members of the public wanting to depute on an agenda item can do so either by submitting a written deputation, which are circulated to our board members, or they can participate by teleconference in today's meeting. There were actually no deputation requests received for today's meeting. As far as requests to speak or question staff, I don't think I need to highlight that. I don't think there's any issues with any member of our committee not being able to be heard, so we won't worry about that. And in keeping with the practice adopted by the City of Toronto, we will, in the absence of any requests from a committee member, we will conduct our votes by the way of show of hands. And before I move to our first agenda item, I just wanted to acknowledge that this is Kevin's last BIFAC meeting before he retires as CEO. And I consider myself to be fortunate to have joined the board while Kevin was CEO. He's certainly accomplished so much. The organization's funding is secured. There's a strong leadership team in place, and the restructuring of the organization is moving forward to ensure that TCHC focuses on service. Service to our tenants is the mandate. So Kevin, you're retiring from an organization that is in a much better place than when you started. And on behalf of the BIFAC committee, I would like to say thank you so much. And we sincerely hope that you enjoy your retirement. So thank you for everything you've done for BIFAC and more importantly for TCHC.
Well, thank you very much, Adele. I appreciate those very fine comments. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the strength of the team and the commitment of the team. It's a very dedicated team. It's, as I mentioned before, it's one of the best leadership teams that I've ever had the privilege of working with. So the thanks that you provide to me really go to a much broader group, and I know that you recognize that. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's good. You should be pleased that you are leaving the organization with a strong leadership team. So thank you very much. So we will move on to item 2A, which is the approval of the agenda. And are there any additions or deletions to the agenda or any items from the consent agenda that any members would like to pull for discussion? Okay, hearing none. Could I ask if there are any conflicts any members have with any items that are on today's agenda? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the public consent agenda as presented. Anna, thank you. Seconder Brian, all in favor? Great, thank you. Motion passed. And we will move on to item 3, which is the business arising from the public meeting minutes and action items update. And could I ask if there are any questions or comments from any members on the action item list? I can't see everyone, but I don't hear any comments. So could I have a motion to receive the action item update? Nick? And could I have a seconder? I can see some people sometimes. Brian, there's Brian. I'm gonna ask Brian to second. Thank you. All in favor? Perfect. So we'll move on to item number 4, which is the tenants first transition of the development function from Toronto Community Housing. We have City of Toronto Citywide Real Estate Program Director, David Dollimore, Create TO's Senior Vice President of Development, Mike Whalen, along with TCHC's Chief Development Officer, Vincent Tong, to provide the committee with a presentation. In addition, all board members have been provided with a copy of this presentation, and they were invited to the BIFAC meeting today to participate in the discussion. The way in which TCHC pursues the revitalization of communities we serve is important, and the staff that do this work are crucial to the success of the projects. Ensuring that the work honors the commitment we make to our tenants as the focus of our decisions. It's important that stays front and center. I can appreciate that the changes that are contemplated in this presentation that we're receiving today will be a source of some anxiety for those TCHC employees and the tenants in whose communities this work is done. And I trust that the implementation of the plan related to the transition of this work will serve to allay those concerns and allow the successes that have been achieved in the organization in this area to continue moving forward. So I will now ask David, Mike, and Vincent to take us through the presentation.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Your comments are noted. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the BIFAC committee. I also want to take this opportunity to offer my congratulations to Kevin, who's been an excellent partner in our work, and I want to wish him well in the next chapter of his life as he retires. My name is David Jollymore, and I am the director of the Citywide Real Estate Program at the City. And it is my pleasure to present to you today our work on the transfer of development functions from TCH. I'm joined by a couple of colleagues, Vincent Tong, who's the Chief Development Officer at TCH, and Mike Wayland, who's a Senior VP of Development at Creatio, who have been partners in our work. In today's presentation, I'll cover the what, the why, and our direction on the how, including current work and areas of focus. And there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done and underway, but we wanted to take this opportunity to give the committee an idea of where we're heading with the current work. So based on the direction from City Council, we are preparing to report back by the end of the second quarter, and we wanted to take this opportunity to start sharing the current directions. Can you advance the next slide, please? Starting with the what, I want to go through the direction that we received from City Council back in 2019. The movement of the development-related functions was put forward as part of Tenant's first implementation plan, where City Council approved in principle the transfer of development functions from TCH to Creatio and/or the city. This direction was in alignment with our citywide real estate model, but we didn't expect any movement of the functions before the end of the 3-year incubation period, which is right about now. The work has also been delayed due to COVID, and we now have a working team comprised of members from the city, Toronto Community Housing, and Creatio, and we're working through a work plan, which I'll go through in a little bit. Specifically, City Council directed us to report back on a number of matters, including the transfer plan, including the governance, our due diligence on legal, financial, and labor, any labor-related implications, an operating model and organizational structure to ensure ongoing coordination and consistent service to tenants during the revitalization projects, and findings from the consultation with a range of stakeholders involved in past or current revitalization projects. Next slide, please. Now for the why. There are a few key areas for why this direction makes sense. A key intent is related to tenant-first focus for the TCH and for staff and the board at TCH to direct their focus and attention on being a good landlord and ensure that tenants of TCH have units that are in a state of good repair and that they are connected to appropriate services. In the context of revitalizing TCH communities, TCH focus on tenant engagement and social development through the development projects. Another key intent is related to city building and maximizing value for TCH communities and the city. Through our work at Creatio, where we analyze and leverage the entire portfolio on a citywide basis, we expect to drive enhanced city building on TCH properties to maximize the value to TCH while also addressing citywide needs. This work is nicely in line with Creatio's mandate and the citywide real estate model. And finally, the intent is also to continue to build capacity and expertise at Creatio as the center of excellence for development and asset management. We expect greater efficiency and effectiveness and a more standardized approach to city building and city-led development projects. Next slide, please. Now we will start to get into a bit of the how. In terms of direction on implementation for the initial phase, we are recommending a few key things. One, a phased approach based on where we are at in the project lifecycle to minimize risk and disruption to TCH tenants. Two, that the tenant impacting and engagement functions remain at TCH. Three, that portfolio strategy for TCH properties be done under Creatio's mandate. Four, that development and planning functions be transferred to Creatio for all projects not considered in flight, and that Creatio should lead future phases of ongoing revite projects and net new projects that result from the portfolio review and strategy work. And finally, that project delivery for in-flight projects remain at TCH. These recommendations align both TCH and Create-TO to their mandates and ensure that we are servicing TCH tenants in the best possible way. In terms of subsequent phases, we need to determine the best path forward for project delivery and construction management. Next slide, please. While we attempted to propose a transfer model that reduces risk, detailed transition and human resources plans and a strong and simple governance framework will be critical to the success of any transfer of function. The following risks exist in any transfer scenario and must be addressed before a transfer occurs. We need to ensure that we are not disrupting the current in-flight projects and that we are managing risk of delivery and the cost of these projects across two organizations moving forward. Governance will be key, and ensuring that we are clear about our process, the decisions needed to advance the work, and who is accountable to make those decisions. This is true for both staff and the boards. We are working through the matters related to staff and want to ensure that we are sensitive and respectful to the staff as we transition functions. And we need to ensure that we stay focused on achieving the outcomes we are expecting and striking the right balance as we deliver these revitalized communities. Funding will always be a challenge as we strike this balance, which I think has been the experience through the revitalizations up until this point. Next slide, please. Governance, both at the staff and at the board levels, will be critical to ensure that we are moving the work along as effectively, efficiently, and as quickly as possible. We are currently working through it in the context of the development process, including all the process steps, the phase gates, the decision points, and accountabilities of staff and accountabilities of the boards. Our intent is to align governance for various scenarios while recognizing the unique case with TCH being a corporation and holding title to the property. Next slide, please. Finally, we wanted to give the board a sense of the work that is currently underway, leading up to our report to the Executive Committee and Council in June. There is still a lot of work to do, which includes completing the board and council governance model and approvals framework, developing the staff transition plans, finalizing our due diligence, establishing a RASCI or staff level governance and accountabilities, and determining the future project delivery model, including construction management. Today, we wanted to introduce or remind committee members of council's direction and our work, and also extend an offer for more deep engagement of committee members or board members on an individual basis as we work through the next several weeks. Thank you, and we are happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Does anyone have any questions for David?
I'm happy to sort of to jump in. So just in terms of timing and expectations around, you know, next steps and follow up, and obviously you provided a bit of a framework today, but there's a lot of detail to still figure out around decision making and governance and so on. What can we expect, or what's the expectation in that regard?
So as I mentioned, we are currently working through a number of matters. We do have a working team between the TCH team, the Create-TO team, and members from the city. There's really a couple of key areas of focus at the moment, and they really center around the process and overlaying the decision-making and approvals framework in the context of a new framework which came forward back in the middle of 2019. So we're going to spend the next several weeks working through that. We're happy to engage board members or committee members on a one-on-one basis if they wish to provide their input. But we would expect to come back to this committee or the board of TCH prior to us bringing the report to executive committee. So that would be in the May timeframe.
Yeah, I'm especially sort of curious. I totally understand from the project execution and delivery and having sort of a center of excellence across the city as it relates to real estate projects. Where I think it gets like really complicated is around the initiation of projects and the community engagement and what the needs are and so on. So I just like when at the appropriate time get a better sense of that overlay, because who's responsible for what and what level of engagement and integration as it relates to our responsibilities as board members of the organizations, and then to the project delivery. So, this is probably not the appropriate time and from a detail perspective, but just that would be sort of my focus at the appropriate time.
Noted. Just a comment. I think any function with respect to tenant facing or tenant engagement, we view would remain at TCH through all phases in the long term, right? We think that's the appropriate place for those functions to exist, to ensure that the inputs of tenants and the tenant's best interest is first and foremost. I think it is fairly complicated, not just from governance, but also from an operating model perspective, to make sure that the two teams are ensuring that the tenants' requirements are being met and that, as I said, the best interests are held.
And just maybe from a conceptual perspective, from an initiation of a project, in the current structure under sort of the TCHC umbrella, there's a number of factors. The age of a complex, the capex requirements going forward, the market conditions in terms of generating a private market or developer partnership. How do you envision the sort of the initiation of a project happening? Is it sort of led? Is it triggered by TCHC and then Create.to comes in as sort of the execution, or is Create.to reviewing that on a regular basis as it relates to development opportunities within the broader portfolio?
Yeah, it's the latter. So Create.to is a mandate for portfolio strategy and analysis on a citywide basis, including the TCH portfolio. So but I think it would be a combination. Certainly, we would be depending on TCH to provide portfolio data, which could include things like facilities condition indexes and other data, which would be important in our analysis of the portfolio, looking for those next opportunities for either revitalized communities and or infill opportunities on the TCH portfolio. So I think it would start the way the model is designed, it would start with that portfolio analysis.
Thank you.
Are there, Brian?
I know it's in the early stages of the process, but I wanted to ask, really, with regards to the tremendous need for affordable housing in the city, and I guess that the outcome or the result of making these changes is that, one, the revitalization can happen more efficiently and quickly, so that we get units in the marketplace for tenants as soon as possible, and also to increase the housing stock of affordable and RGI units going forward. So I guess as long as there's some way to monitor the fact that this is to create more housing, we actually will get a report back that Create.to will actually improve the delivery of housing in the city of Toronto. I know you have a number of other real estate requirements, and we just don't want to lose the focus on housing within the larger Create.to mandate.
Yes, indeed. I think you're bang on, right? So I think the intent here is to better leverage the TCH land for additional housing opportunities, and certainly in the process of doing so, we would take the opportunity also to add additional community infrastructure that's needed in those particular communities, and with that would come additional sources of capital. That's kind of the way we see it. I think the challenge that we have, we're always going to have an issue of funding, right? So there's never going to be enough funding to do everything that we want to do. So I think that's the challenge we're going to face. I think by looking at the portfolio on a more citywide, at a citywide level, I think we can look for opportunities to be smarter with the use of our capital. But I think your point is well taken in terms of the intent to, deliver new RGI units or replacement RGI units and affordable housing units, as well as other community infrastructure using the TCH lands.
In addition, I know there are, and I assume you would have more ability to do this kind of thing. The Daniels Group, for instance, has just done a rental building where they have allocated affordable units within their rental building, which is a slightly different model. So you'll be looking at a number of ways, not necessarily just TCHC, but the broader ability to deliver housing, affordable housing within the city through a number of other ways, which may not depend as much on perhaps financing.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, we're working in consultation with the Housing Secretariat, who has a much broader view in terms of, increasing the housing stock and various different programs that can support our ability to do that beyond just, land value as an example. So yes, absolutely. I think we'll take every opportunity and every program that's available to us in order to increase the housing stock.
David, maybe I can.
Anything to add, Kevin? Oh, Mike, yes.
Yeah, maybe I can.
Mike, you go first.
The affordable housing program that Creatio is currently working on, we've got 17 projects we're working on, and some of those projects have a mix between market condominiums, market rental units, as well as affordable. So we do look at that. We look to maximize the city's land values when we go out and do these deals, and so we do take a creative approach and look at it from every different aspect.
Kevin?
Yeah, sorry, why don't I just to tag in on Brian's comments there, or his questions. I think one of the things that just may not be obvious to the members of the board here is that when Creatio takes a look at it, they're looking at all the lands, within it. When TCHC is looking at, necessarily, we're just looking at our lands. And so when you look at communities like Fir Grove, as an example, where we know that we are going to be doing, building in the future, there are a number of parcels of adjacent lands or near site lands, within that are owned by other aspects of the city and other partners that the city works with. And so when you look at it, you can actually look at a larger vision for a particular piece of property of which we may play a part of, and our lands may play a part of it. And so I'm not sure that necessarily came through, but I know just in the dialogue that I've had with the, with the city and Creatio, and I should say Vincent and I have had, that's one of the advantages. The second advantage I would look at is that because it looks at the partner needs or the needs of all the partners of the city, and I'm thinking of all the other agencies of the city, the question of, well, should we build a library on this land, or not? And I know that it's come up in the Regent Park development as an example, is actually considered in advance, as opposed to we get partway down a track and then someone becomes aware of what we're thinking of, and then they say, oh, hey, I'd like to do something there. So I think that, what you really have, ultimately, and listen, I get it that there's a lot of devil in the details of kind of making the mechanics work, but at a conceptual basis, what you have is a more holistic view, so that when you go, for example, to RFP, you actually have an RFP on a solution that you're going to be able to start to execute, as opposed to you go to an RFP and then you kind of say, oh, well, can we increase the density on this land, as an example? All of those sorts of considerations are kind of worked up front, in terms of it, so that when you get to the decision, A, it ought to be more holistic, and secondly, the time to execution in theory should accelerate. And I'll stop there.
Brian?
One last question, because from a TCHC perspective, I know it's always a challenge in revitalization in terms of transfers and having people move and working that with a very sensitive process to the tenant needs. And I guess I'm just concerned that that aspect will be worked through in the details on how those happen, because obviously from a TCHC perspective, ensuring that our tenants are adequately and sort of their needs are addressed, and as opposed to the pressures that come from a construction and real estate where you want to get the job done as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and the concern that tenants' needs will be taken as a very important aspect of those revitalizations.
Yeah, just a comment. So those functions, our recommendation is that those functions remain at TCH. I can imagine, and perhaps Vincent wants to comment, but I expect there's already tension in the system in terms of, a development team that wants to advance the development as quickly and as effectively, efficiently, cost effectively as possible, versus the need to be respectful of tenants, and which is a very disruptive thing that's happening to tenants if they have to leave their home and then be relocated and then have to return. So I expect that tension occurs today. I think that's one of the things we're going to have to manage very closely and carefully, as now we have two organizations who are working in support of these revitalized communities.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll just add on to what David said as well. I think moving forward, how we envision this process to unfold as we continue to develop it is that TCHC will still have a seat at the table. We'll still be involved with Creatio in planning out how the revitalizations get implemented. And in consideration of tenants' needs in terms of relocation, those will all be factors as part of how revitalizations will move forward.
Thanks, Vincent.
Are there any other questions or comments? I am concerned about the governance. I want to make sure that there's proper reporting to the TCHC board to ensure that we can fulfill our duties. But I'm also concerned that, that we don't get bogged down in the bureaucracy, that it's a streamlined approach, and that it's timely. And I was wondering, is this arrangement unique for Creatio? Is TCHC the only organization that they're doing this work for that is going to retain the ownership of the properties, or does this happen with other agencies?
No, this is unique. This is a unique case, because for all the other agencies and boards that Creatio supports in terms of real estate matters, the city holds, in the vast majority of cases, the city holds title. So, this is unique for TCH. That said, we don't want to create a monster as it relates to governance for the TCH matters, right? And one of the ideas that we're currently working through is perhaps, and this came up at the Creatio board meeting on Monday when we presented, was that perhaps a joint committee of the boards is a good idea to ensure that we're moving the business along as quickly as we possibly can, but that the TCH board is able to fulfill its fiduciary responsibility that it has as directors of a corporation and holding title to the property. So working through that. Happy to meet any committee member on a one-on-one basis to get input on that. We're drawing the picture because I think the picture speaks 1,000 words in terms of the flow, the process flow, and who's involved at what stage, both from a staff perspective as well as from a decision-making perspective as it relates to either the Creatio board or the TCH board or council. So we're working through it. That is the crux of the matter in my view. I mean, everything else we can work through. It's complicated for sure. As I mentioned, the staff level type of, functional pieces and staff level pieces we'll work through. But the governance piece, I think, will be be critical to the success of this thing.
Yeah, I think it's key. I actually understand that IO and Metrolinx have, I think, what you describe as a joint committee. I'm presuming it's working well.
Yes, in fact, yes. So I know Vincent has consulted with members of staff from our former members of staff from IO Metrolinx. One of the Creatio board members is the former chief legal officer at Infrastructure Ontario. So I've had a detailed conversation with her on her experience in working in that governance framework with Metrolinx and IO. You know, certainly I think there are differences between board level governance and staff level.
Yes.
You know, we have to treat those unique, and we are doing so.
I agree.
But that's what kind of leads to the idea of perhaps a joint committee of both boards, so that, you know, all the various different interests are held as important as we advance the work.
Yeah, just so that the reporting is streamlined and we don't get bogged down and delayed. You don't want projects to be delayed by bureaucracy. It's difficult even now for Vincent to time everything to work with our board schedule. And I guess just to reiterate what other members have said is, you know, my concern that the tenants remain a key driver in the development and revitalization decisions, because I know that there are a number of other drivers when you're considering real estate development, and that one's really key for us. And just, you know, replacing and rebuilding existing homes, in addition to increasing the social assisted housing, that's important to TCHC. So I just want to make sure that tenant voice is not left behind. And
David, if you just add to that for a second, Madam Chair, I would say that the Creatio board has many similar concerns that you have, and particularly as it relates to, you know, roles, responsibilities, accountabilities. And so, as David's mentioned, there's still a lot of work to be done on the governance side of things.
Yes.
And we'll be coming back to you on that front.
Yes, and I hope we work closely together on that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And just to comment in terms of, you know, tenants, first and foremost in your mind and of concern, you know, I can tell you that in the working group that we have, there's a very strong voice on behalf of the tenants in the members from TCH.
That's good to hear. Are there any other comments or questions for the group?
Madam Chair, it's Councillor Fletcher. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
I signed on to your confidential session thinking that would be there, but it was very fascinating. Thank you. I think you've got a great committee. Do a great job.
We're thrilled to have you, because we don't get very many visitors at BIFAC.
Well, we were said we could visit. I just want to focus on two things. One is around the tenants. In my role, and same with Deputy Mayor and Councillor Nunziata, we have facing a lot of tenants that are getting renovated, where a landlord wants to fix something or rebuild something, and they're all getting N13s to go out the door, to come back, no right to return. They have a right, but they simply don't exercise it. And then the rents, of course, when they would come back, would be increased, or they get renovated and their rents get increased. So I think legally that simply can't happen with any TCHC revitalization. We have to maintain that. But I feel that I'm watching a lot of landlords who want to renovate or fix up their properties, and they don't, and their moral compass isn't anything like TCHC. So we're in a very unique situation where all of the tenants actually are relocated and have the right to go back. It is a very high standard that we've set at TCHC and through the city, that all the RGIs have to be rebuilt, unlike other cities where they're sending people to different places. So our model is extremely robust and tenant focused already. As a matter of fact, sometimes we get to a situation, I think Sheila or Kevin could say, where a tenant simply is refusing to move, that's what's going to hold up the entire, it held up Regent Park. The tenant refused to move and eventually had to be taken out. So that happens more than we realize. So I just want to basically say we have a gold standard when it comes to tenants and their ability to relocate, their ability to be moved. We actually move the tenants. We pay for the moving, everything. They get to select. This does not happen to any other tenants in the city of Toronto. So I just want you all to know that this is a very high bar. And then for tenants. And I think by leaving that, the group at TCHC and under, I'm going to say, a tenant focused area rather than development focused, it would seem that we'll even get stronger results from that. That is what I believe very strongly. And we've had that approach for a long time, and it has put us as being, people say we're not a good landlord. We are the beyond gold standard landlord when it comes to redevelopment and relocation, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure everybody knows it in that context.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And it does impact all aspects of a development project. So it's important to keep in mind. Are there any other comments or questions for our guests? Anna?
Yeah. What June executive meeting are you trying to go, David?
June 1st, Deputy
Okay.
Mayor. Mm-hmm.
So I suggest, because our BIFAC meeting is May 18th, before that. So it might not leave you a lot of time to get the comments from this board. So I would probably think that if we need a special session of BIFAC, I would like to put it to the board, but I think would be open to it. I think this is a pretty important issue that I think members would like to take a close look at, give you feedback, and feel comfortable with. So I just want to bring those dates to the table because it might be too close. So you might need to have something before then to properly have feedback from everybody.
Yeah, I think the more time we have, the better.
Okay. And we'd be happy to facilitate that. And it might be better if we do it as a special meeting and this is all we discuss. So I'm sure Dara or Sonia could help us with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Dave? Oh, yes, Councilor Nunziata.
I'm not sure if I missed it or not. So within our portfolio, if there are sites, TCHC sites, where there's a possibility of revitalization, does it go through, is the request put forward to create TO and then TCHC? Like how does that, how is that connected?
Yeah, so one of the key functions of CreateTO is to do the portfolio analysis and strategy on a citywide basis for all the various different asset types, including the TCH portfolio. So that's one of the recommendations, is that that function, which is currently performed by TCH, move to CreateTO under their mandate. And we expect that future revitalizations or infill opportunities will be identified through that work.
Okay, so if I have a site in my ward where I feel that there's a possibility of revitalization, I should go through CreateTO and bring those recommendations forward?
Yeah, I think that would be the appropriate place. I expect, in an ideal world, the portfolio now analysis yields all of the opportunities, but the reality is that I think other opportunities will be identified by the TCH team, as well as by members of like local ward councillors who see opportunities.
Right. So Kevin,
Yes.
the site I would like to see, and I know that you've been working with me on it, is the Falstaff. I think there's great opportunities in the Falstaff community.
So
We have
so
buildings.
yeah, and so thank you for that, Councillor. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's, you know, the opportunities that might exist. We've done a fair bit of refurbing in Falstaff, and one of the things that we look at is obviously the FCI of the site. But I think that, you know, that's one of the ideal things that we should look at relative to, you know, kind of what else is there, because I don't know what other city properties are around there or what Create-TO would take a look at. But that's the sort of stuff that Vincent and Create-TO team right now anyways can start to take a look at.
Because my office, actually, we were going to contact you and talk about that, because I'm going to talk about the Falstaff site, because I think there's opportunities there, because in the 10-year plan for Parks and Recreation, the existing community center that's there that was once owned by TCHC, the city owns now, is that the city is planning on tearing down that center and rebuilding a state-of-the-art community center. At that, there's an opportunity there to do revitalization within the TCHC buildings, and what the city's project is in the next 2 or 3 years.
And that's an excellent example of what I mentioned earlier, where we know what we're working on, but part of the Create-TO mandate integrated with the city knows what all of the various agencies are working on, and kind of their plans. So kind of merge those effectively. Vincent.
Yeah, and sorry, Councillor, I just wanted to add in as well. In the interim, I'm happy to have an offline conversation with you about Falstaff. We've already been engaged in conversations with PFNR about their plans already, so we've already been looped in on that. So I'm happy to have further discussions with you offline.
Kevin?
Just another point I was going to just suggest
call
with
my office, Vincent.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Vince, if you can just call my office and we can set up a meeting, because I am working on it. I'm trying to work on it, and because there's a lot happening in that area. Sorry, Kevin. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Fine, Councillor. Appreciate it. I was just going to mention, Adele, that when you're looking at scheduling the special meeting, that one of the reasons that David brought it to BIFAC as opposed to the full board was kind of the timing and where they were at in their presentations relative to discussions that were thought to be taking place with council at that time. And so I think that, you know, when we do set up, you know, the recommendation is I think we should reach out to the full board to invite them to whatever the main presentation and discussion is that takes place.
And certainly that's what we did today. And we did have a few other board members take us up on our offer, but certainly we would include all of the board members. So thanks for reminding us, Kevin. Are there, Anna?
Just one more question. So, Vincent, what, in terms of the staff in your team, what are we looking at? How many staff are there in the team now?
So currently there's 67 staff. There's 4 different functional areas that are overseen by the development group today, which is relocation, revitalization, engagement with the tenants, the development planning team, and then the development project delivery construction team.
Okay, and so David, when we come back, and David and Vincent, when we come back with all that, you'll have the path to all those staff individually, who stays, who goes, the job descriptions and all that. So this board can also have a close look at the lay of the land, correct?
Yeah, in the context of the process with the functions that are moving, we have to tie FTEs, staff, to those particular functions. So yes.
Sorry, can I follow up on that question from Deputy Mayor? Can you just tell us the numbers that are there? I see very tenant focused is relocation and engagement, the scholarships and the work with the tenants. And how many staff are there of the 67?
Sure. So the development planning and construction team consists of 30 staff. The revitalization engagement team consists of 26 staff, and the relocation team consists of 11 staff.
And if you broke out planning and construction and delivery, what would that ratio be, Vincent?
So then it would be 30 on the development construction side, and then 37 on the relocation and tenant engagement side.
No, I meant, you said 11 relocation, 26 engagement, and then you've got planning, and then you've got the actual construction and delivery. Could you break those out for me, please, between the planning for the development and the construction and delivery for the development?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but I can report back to you.
Maybe
and let you know.
David has those. David, have you got those numbers?
I don't, Councillor. So we're still working through all this with Vincent and the team.
I just have to say that since we're going for June, I would think that those numbers would be something we would know right off the top, so. Because even for the host being create, what are we looking at? So when would you actually have, I know you have the numbers, but when will you be able to tell us those numbers?
I would say in the next few weeks, Councillor.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
No, I was just gonna say that certainly the current state we can provide in a much shorter time frame than that.
Okay, so you'll share
Kevin.
that with us, Kevin?
Vincent will share that with you. He's got it.
Oh, okay.
It's just not off the top of his head.
Yes, we understand. So are there any other comments or questions for our guests before we move on? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to say thank you very much for attending our BIFAC meeting and for your presentation. And we certainly look forward to working with you on this so that we have a smooth transition and ensuring that the mandates of the three organizations involved move forward. And as Councillor Fletcher noted, TCHC wants to maintain our gold standard. So that's very important to us. And so we do look forward to working with you on this. And we'll be in touch as far as a special meeting, and certainly we will invite the full board to that special meeting. So we'll coordinate that. And thank you very much, David and Michael. And as always, thank you, Vincent.
Yes, no,
Thanks
our
to the
pleasure
committee.
be here and meet with you. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, it was our pleasure. Thank you.
Bye now.
So could I have a motion to receive this report? I don't see anybody anymore. Somebody, Anna, thank you. Seconder, Nick, I can see Nick, and all in favor? Thank you very much. And that's something that we're going to be working on in the near future. It's very important. We are now going to move on to item number 5. And it is the Internal Audit Department's annual report for 2020. And I will turn this over to Kareem. I can't, I'm presuming he's, oh, yeah, there you are.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
you.
This is our 2020 report. We are starting this process again. Some years ago, internal audit report was being prepared and presented to BIFAC. That was discontinued. So now, from 2020 onwards, we plan to present this annual report to the committee. As Adele highlighted in the beginning, in her opening remarks, obviously it was an extraordinary year for all of us, challenging year for internal audit as well. Our audit plan was approved just before COVID started, so it was planned like a normal audit year with the projects on both the RGI side and corporate side. But nothing remained normal after that, as we all know. So I'm starting with page 29, which is providing governance structure and a little bit brief about the internal audit function. We, as we know, we report functionally to BIFAC and administratively to the CFO. We provided organization chart also for the internal audit department. It has a corporate audit team as well as the RGI audit team. The corporate audit team basically executes the annual audit plan projects on the corporate side, on the process side of things. as well as the RGI audit team. They review the tenant files and do other RGI related projects. There are highlights provided on the next page, page 30. So, like I mentioned earlier, we had COVID challenges because we were not able to, meet in person with the auditees. We were not able to get tenant files on the RGI side, but we did manage. And on the corporate side as a whole, we provided 49 recommendations during the year. We completed all the projects substantially as per the annual audit plan. On the RGI side, we reviewed about 300 files during the year and provided some data analysis projects as requested by the management. For the corporate project, just before COVID, we were working on a project, and our point of contact was deployed to the Emergency Operations Center. We worked around and managed with that auditee to get the information, complete the project. On the RGI side, we had to work with scanning the files to complete our work. We managed that as well as per the annual audit. On the management request and consultation sides, we provided data analysis projects. We provided some, investigation services a couple of times during the year. It was requested. And we also provided support to the investigations unit under the legal division on the files that were referred to them from SSHA, which were originally referred from Auditor General's office. And substantially, we were able to complete our annual audit plan. Some of our team members were able to move forward with their professional growth. One was able to obtain certified internal audit designation. Another was able to obtain certified fraud examination designation. We also did a few training courses and were able to successfully complete all those trainings as well. The next page provides a summary. This is page 31. Provides a summary of the corporate audit projects that were completed in 2020. That's the next page, page 31. So, yeah, can you go to the next page, please?
Sonia, are you controlling the screen? Yep, there.
Yeah, thank you. So these are the projects that we completed on the corporate side, including the last two projects. The reports were presented today in camera session, item 5 and item 6. And then the next page, please, that summarizes the RGI audit projects that we completed in 2020. That is page 32, Sonia. So this is the corporate side. The next page is the RGI side.
Isn't technology great?
It is. I would note, Karim, I think the Sonia's having some data issues here. The directors all have this material in their package.
Yes.
Maybe you can just speak to it as opposed to waiting for the page.
Okay, I will just give you. So now I'm on page 32, which is the RGI, audit projects that we completed, which includes providing support to our external auditors, PwC, where our external auditors at that time. Along with that, we did a couple of projects on the contract management side. We also reviewed some, files from the fraud perspective and all that. A total was, 270 files, plus there were some more. So around 300 files were reviewed during the year. Also, the next table provides some details on the data analysis projects that we did. These were the four, the main ones that we did. 13 recommendations were made on that side. And now I'm on next page 33. So this provides a little outlook for 2021 plan to do. So BIFAC approved our annual audit plan in the last meeting. We will be executing that plan during this year, which contains the corporate projects as well as the RGI projects. So the first project, annual unit inspection, has already started. We are in the planning phase of that audit. Additionally, like every year, we will also be providing a rolling plan update to BIFAC in the first meeting of 2022, and we'll seek BIFAC's approval on that. Also, we will continue with our, CCM data analysis project. This is the continuous control monitoring project. We do this every year. And similarly, in one of my meetings with the Director of Internal Audit of City of Toronto, he highlighted and indicated that they will be needing some support from internal audit here at TCHC for one of their financial statement reviews. So we will be providing support to city's internal audit department as well. Additionally, we will continue with our team development in terms of trainings, in terms of obtaining new certifications, and personal growth and professional growth of the team. At the end, I would like to thank BIFAC for all the support during the year. I would like to thank the management for all the support they provided during various different projects. I also specifically want to thank Kevin for his support during our different projects during the year 2020. And obviously to my team, they quickly adjusted to the COVID situation in terms of how the information was being obtained, how the meetings happened, how the reporting was done. So thank you, my team, as well. And please let me know if there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Krim? Anna?
I have some questions. Some might be for Krim, some might not. With regards to the RGI, how is our audit working with the implementation of the new RGI populations, and has the city given us any direction on how that's coming along?
So we do not have any specific direction from the city, but what we do as part of our RGI reviews, we provide like kind of broadly two types of services, one for direct managed units and one for contract units. For direct managed units, we provide support services to the external auditors. They provide us their sample, and we select additional sample, and we provide review services for them. So there is no specific direction as of now, but what we will do is once the new RGI rules are in place, we will be using those to review the tenant files and reviewing the calculation and documentation as against the current ones. So that's how we are going to basically bring little change to our approach and our parameters in terms of how we review. In terms of contract managed files, again, we will be using the new rules when they come into place. And we are we have made sure that the units which are transitioning back to TCHC, we include those, and we include that as part of direct managed RGI review. But we will still continue to do our contract managed review, applying the new rules when they go into effect for us on July 1.
Okay. I thought
Sheila? Oh, I'm sorry, Anna.
Sorry, I have a few more. I thought the city was working on a centralized system to collect this information to have RGI verification.
So I can clarify. Kareem is speaking to the audit process. Once the new requirements are in place, which is happening in July, we're moving to choice-based letting. We're working with SSHA on a simplified verification of income through a notice of assessment. So we understand what's coming down the pipe for July. We're adjusting our processes internally. And then Karim, once we have our new processes in place, we'll be auditing against those new processes.
Got it. With regards to the support that you're going to be giving the city auditor this year, what's the, remind me again, what's the audit? Is it on the vendors? What audits are they doing?
So I don't have so much detail on that, but I had a meeting with Stuart Campbell. He's the director of City's Internal Audit Department. I had a meeting with him earlier. Usually I do that every year. I collaborate with AG's office as well as the City's Internal Audit Department for my annual audit planning purposes. So when I was doing the plan for 2021, which was approved by BIFAC in the last meeting, at that time I had a meeting with him. So he did mention to me that they will be looking for some support and they will be providing more details to us as to what they are exactly looking from us. But I do know that they have one of their internal audit plan is to review some sort of financial statement information for some agencies and corporations. And TCHC is part of that scope of audit. So he said he's going to provide more details on that.
Okay. Kareem, would you, after you have the meeting, and I mean, their work plan has been approved. I just don't remember. But I think it would be important for the members of the BIFAC, because if I recall correctly, there's a few audits coming up with regards to TCHC and stuff regarding to this committee. Just if you could give heads up to the committee on the audits that they're going to be performing, I think would be important.
I will, yeah. So I will now, as you said that the plan is approved, I will connect back with Stuart, get more details, and I will report back to BIFAC on that. Sure.
Okay. Also, so we have your yearly report, and I don't think, do we have like a report from you or management, like mid-year or anything, just on the status of the recommendations, or the plan is just to have once a year on how we're doing in those?
Yeah, so we will be providing a status on the open audit recommendation as on June 30th as well. That will be provided to BIFAC on first available opportunity after June 30th. So that will be a mid-year status update. We provided end of the year status update in the last meeting. We will be doing another one as of June 30th.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions regarding this report? Okay, hearing none. I just wanted to say that the work of your team is very beneficial to the organization on many levels. So I just want to thank you, Kareem, for your leadership of the Internal Audit Department. We really appreciate it. And could I have a motion to approve or receive this report? Anna, Nick, seconder, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much, Kareem. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate all the support from you and from BIFAC and from the management. Thank you.
And we are now going to move on to item number 6, and it's the facility management reports. And the first one is the contractor award for Trimby Court. And I'm going to turn this over to Alan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the BIFAC committee. Good morning. So as you noted, this report recommends awarding a contract to Roma Building Restoration for $2.9 million for the garage restoration at Trimby Court. The recommended project is to address concrete deterioration and structural damage to the garage. The work also includes drainage improvements and partial slab replacement, localized concrete repairs to prevent further deterioration of the structural components of the garage. The work was procured through a competitive process. The restoration will be delivered in 3 phases, starting this year and through to 2023. The pricing that we've received is consistent with the project estimate. The contractor has also agreed to hold pricing for all of the phases of work. And phase 2 and 3 of the work will be awarded based upon availability of funding and, of course, satisfactory contractor performance. So your approval is requested.
Are there any questions for Alan? Brian?
Have we had any dealings with this contractor previously?
Yes, we have.
And you've been satisfied with their work?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Alan, I just wanted to confirm the prices are fixed through the final phase in 2023?
Correct, yes. The contractor has agreed to hold the pricing for all of the 3 phases.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Alan on this matter? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to approve this award? Brian, thank you. And a seconder? Nick, thank you. All in favor? Motion is passed. You've got your approval, Alan, and we'll move
Thank
on
you.
to item number 6B, which is the design services funding agreement for St. Jamestown.
Thank you. This report recommends the execution of a design services funding agreement with the city to rehabilitate underused space within the St. Jamestown community. This public open space plan is one of the key projects in the city's larger city building framework for the St. Jamestown community. Its aim is to enhance the public space, improve pedestrian connections, and create a city-run park. The agreement also includes a transfer of $515,000 from the city to TCHC to execute the design of the project. The scope of work for this project is to be proposed is to be completed on TCHC property, and thus requires that we approve the lease of land on which the project will take place. The lease would be for a term of 50 years less a day. In exchange for the lease, the city will will fund, operate, maintain, and manage a city-run park on the leased land. In a partnership with the city, TCHC will deliver both design and construction of the project. The project, of course, will be delivered to TCHC standards and will follow all of TCHC procurement policies and procedures. The city has agreed to fund the project and is committed to transfer a total of $5.1 million. TCHC is also committed to $1.2 million worth of additional work that will be completed on adjacent land, but not on the leased land. The city will seek council approval to execute the construction funding agreement to transfer the remainder of funds over the next 2 years. Of course, at this time, TCHC will also seek board authorization to enter into the construction funding agreement with the city. The delivery of the project will be undertaken in conjunction with a restoration project that we're doing on an underground parking garage, which is currently underway, and it's directly below the proposed area for the park. Project's a great opportunity for us to collaborate with the city on an important city initiative, and the partnership project will transform an underutilized asset or area into a large-scale public park that will absolutely improve the quality of life for our tenants and for the City of Toronto residents that are in that area. Your approval is requested.
Are there any questions for Alan on this matter? Okay. So Alan, can I just ask? Oh, sorry, Anna. Go ahead.
Just want to make a comment and congratulate staff for being able to coordinate and get the funds from the city on this. I think this is an important work, and good on you to make sure that they to get this financing.
Thank you.
Alan, there was a reference to design overruns and the lack of an agreement between TCHC and the city as to how we deal with that. So how does that impact the fate of this project?
I don't think that there will be any complications with that. Okay. We know what the budget is, and we're going to do as we do with any project, and absolutely maintain tight control, over the budget and deliver the project.
Okay, so you don't see that as a risk?
I don't. I think there's always some element of risk in any project, but I don't see this as a significant risk that's concerning to me. Okay,
it's just you highlighted the fact that there wasn't an agreement on who was going to fund the overrun, so I was just
and
curious.
I'm confident that we'll be able to work through all of the the little details or all the details with this as we progress through the project. But I think there's commitment absolutely on both sides to make sure that the project is delivered. It's delivered
yes.
within budget, and it's a great project, I think.
Yes, and I think that motivation on both sides will make everything easier.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so hearing no other comments or questions, could I have a motion to approve the funding? Nick? Could I have a seconder? Anna? All in favor? So again, you have the approval for St. James project. So thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you, everyone.
And we will move to, I guess, is that the end? That is the end?
That's the end.
Wow.
We'll move to the end.
We'll move to the end. That's great. So is there any other business? Okay, thank you. So hearing none, then could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Everybody's, we got everybody, 2 hands up. I'm usually requesting someone to move and second, and now everybody's got their hands up. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care. Thank you.
everyone.
Great.
Great day.